You know, we tend to put great leaders on a pedestal, thinking they're almost infallible. But the truth is, when the pressure gets intense enough, even the best can make a critical, career-ending mistake. Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful case study of one of those moments. It's the story of Moses at a place called Meribah, and the one single act of defiance that completely changed his destiny.
Okay, so to really get this, you have to put yourself there. We're in the desert of Kadesh. It is brutal. It's hot, there's nothing around, and you have this massive community just on the edge. And then the crisis hits, and it hits hard. There was no water. And look at the reaction. The people don't just ask for help, they gather against their leaders, Moses and his brother Aaron. So right from the jump, the tension is just incredibly high.
So our story kicks off with this really intense crisis. But here's the thing that's so crucial to understand. This wasn't a one-time event. This wasn't the first time they'd run out of something. It had become a pattern, and that recurring pattern is absolutely key to understanding the insane pressure Moses was dealing with.
Think about it. This had become this exhausting, demoralizing cycle for the leadership. First, some kind of legitimate hardship would pop up. No food, no water, totally fair. But then, step 2, the people complain. And their fear, it always seemed to curdle into anger and blame. Which leads to step 3. Moses and Aaron have to go and intercede with God to fix it. Imagine going through that loop again and again and again.
And listen to the way they talk. This isn't just a simple, hey, we're thirsty. This is raw, it's desperate, and it is deeply accusatory. They're basically screaming that they would rather have died back in Egypt than be out here with Moses. They're accusing him, to his face, of bringing them out into the wilderness for the sole purpose of killing them and their families. This isn't a supply chain issue anymore, it's a full-blown mutiny.
So, when you're faced with an open rebellion like this, where do you turn? Well, the leaders turn to their ultimate authority to get a solution. And this brings us to the divine command, which was supposed to be a clear, simple instruction that would have fixed everything. Instead of getting into a shouting match or trying to defend themselves, Moses and Aaron do what they've always done. They go straight to the tabernacle, the center of worship, and they just humble themselves. It's a really solemn, serious act. And it's in this moment of crisis that a divine presence, which the text calls the glory of the Lord, shows up with the answer.
And the command they're given is, well, it's shockingly simple. It's not complicated. It doesn't require some big show of force or any real human effort. Moses is just told to speak to the rock. That's it. This was meant to be a demonstration of pure faith, where just a quiet word was going to unleash this incredible miracle for everybody to witness.
And this right here is the pivot point of the whole story. It's the breaking point. After years of pressure, years of exhaustion, and now staring down a mutinous crowd, Moses' own frustration finally boils over and overrides that divine directive. This is where the fatal error happens. So Moses stands up in front of all the people, but he doesn't give them a message of grace or hope. Instead, all that pent-up anger just explodes. He calls them rebels. And then he says this line, "Must we fetch you water?" See that? We. In that one tiny word, he takes all the credit. He makes it about him and Aaron, not about God. He completely misrepresented his role as a leader.
And this is the core of it. It couldn't be clearer. The command was an act of faith. Speak. But his action, it was pure frustration and force. He struck the rock. This isn't just, a minor change of plans. It is a direct, flat-out contradiction of the one instruction he was given.
And what's wild is, the water does come out. It flows abundantly. The people get their water, the animals drink, the immediate crisis is averted. So from a purely practical standpoint, you could say mission accomplished. But the method was a profound failure. In that moment, Moses acted out of his own anger, not in obedience to the authority he was supposed to be representing.
An act of public defiance like this, especially from a leader with the stature of Moses, was not going to go unnoticed. The whole tone of the story now shifts, and we look at the really solemn, heavy fallout from this one single, frustrated action.
The consequence is just staggering. Moses and Aaron are told point blank, you will not be the ones to lead the people into the promised land. And the reason given gets right to the heart of the failure.
It wasn't just about disobeying an order. It was because, as God says, they failed to sanctify me, to represent God's holiness and character properly in front of everybody. Their very public failure had a very public and permanent consequence. So, what's the big takeaway here? Why are we still talking about this story thousands of years later? Well, it's because it illustrates this timeless, universal principle about leadership, about responsibility, and about the very real danger of misrepresenting the authority you claim to serve. And get this, even the name of the place, Meribah, drives this whole point home. The word in Hebrew actually means strife or quarreling. The location itself is forever named after the conflict that happened there. It's like a permanent monument to this clash between the people's complaints, the leader's frustration, and that divine standard.
So this whole story really boils down to a few powerful principles. It shows us that leadership carries this immense responsibility, that what you do in public really, really matters because you're representing something bigger than yourself. And misrepresenting the very character of that authority is a huge error. And maybe most importantly, it shows that no one, not even the most faithful or privileged leader, is above being held accountable.
And all of this leaves us with this final, really provocative question that echoes all the way from an ancient desert to our modern boardrooms and halls of power. What this explainer really forces us to ask is this: is any leader, in any field, truly above the rules, the values, and the character of the authority they claim to represent? The story of Meribah suggests the answer is a pretty firm no.